It was the deadliest single day in Israel's history. At least 260 people were gunned down at a music festival held in the name of peace, the vast majority of the victims young partygoers, and 700 died across the country. Their Hamas killers came from the sky in paragliders and stormed across the border from Gaza on motorbikes and in trucks, before unleashing a deadly hail of bullets. One young German woman's naked and desecrated corpse was paraded for the cameras by celebrating terrorists and spat on by bystanders. 130 people, including many from the festival, were taken back to Gaza alive to be bartered for Palestinians currently held in Israeli prisons. In total, more than 2,000 people were wounded in the largest surprise attack on Israel since Yom Kippur, almost 50 years ago to the day. This is how Hamas appears to have completely outmaneuvered Israel's legendary security services to unleash slaughter on a day that's being called the country's 9/11. The border between Israel and Gaza is one of the most heavily monitored pieces of land anywhere in the world. And the Israeli armed forces are renowned for their signals interception technology, their advanced air defenses, and their dynamic military. But on Saturday, somehow up to 1,000 Islamist fighters, led by Hamas, were able to cut holes in the fence separating Gaza from Israel using explosives and bulldozers, and stream through on motorbikes and pickup trucks. The attack appears to have started with drones suppressing lookout and surveillance posts, with video showing bombs raining down on fortified compounds. At the same time, several thousand missiles were fired into the south of Israel in an opening salvo which provided cover for the ground assault. It came on the Jewish holiday of Sukkot, amid allegations that much of the Israeli armed forces were at home or deployed further north, guarding against incursions from the West Bank. Hamas paramotors then streamed across the border, carrying scores of fighters, perhaps evading sophisticated air defenses with their small size and slow speed. Islamist fighters then stormed Israeli border posts, killing dozens of troops, many of them taken by surprise in their barracks and gunned down while unarmed. A number of Israeli armored vehicles were captured, while at least one Merkava tank was destroyed. One Israeli commander was killed and another captured. Hamas terrorists roamed through southern Israel, opening fire on anyone they saw, including elderly people who were killed at a bus stop and civilians shot inside their homes. One woman allegedly learned that her grandmother had been killed when a Hamas fighter uploaded a video of her corpse to her Facebook page. Another video appeared to show a man being dragged from his car and having his throat slit on the street. But it was at the Nova Festival, held on farmland near the kibbutz of Reem, where perhaps the most shocking violence unfolded. It is possible the Hamas terrorists stumbled across the event, given its location was a secret and only unveiled to attendees at the last minute. The 3,000-strong crowd had been dancing all night, but early on Saturday, Hamas paragliders descended on the site, with video appearing to capture the moment. At around 6:30 AM, explosions and gunfire cut through the pounding music. The crowd took cover, but it was not long before jihadists arrived at the site and opened fire. Thousands began to flee, running to their cars or trying to hide in a nearby wooded area. Survivors say the terrorists started to hunt them down, executing them in cold blood. One woman, fleeing on foot, told how a young man came to her aid and told her to get in his car, only for him to be shot in the head at point-blank range. Gunmen strafed a queue of cars as people abandoned their vehicles and ran, only to be cut down in the wide-open terrain. They also reportedly targeted the exits of the festival, and one image shows a tent filled with dozens of bodies. One witness, who spoke to CNN, described it as a shooting range. Another told the BBC how she hid underneath a tree as bullets flew. She remembers thinking, "It's okay, you're going to die." just close your eyes. Perhaps the most shocking story to emerge from the festival is that of Shani Luke, a German tattoo artist who was also killed. Harrowing footage showed her corpse, stripped to its underwear, being sat on by Hamas fighters in the back of a truck driving through Gaza. Dozens more festival attendees are thought to have been taken prisoner. One medic, called to the area, described it as a planned ambush. As people came out of the emergency exits, squads of terrorists were waiting for them and just started picking them off, he told the BBC. By the end of the day, Hamas had infiltrated at least 22 towns and villages, massacring civilians as they went. Thousands of rockets had been fired, striking as far afield as Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, overwhelming the Iron Dome with their sheer number. Israel has promised a massive retaliation. The IDF has begun airstrikes in Gaza, reserve troops have been called up, and tanks are massing on the border. President Benjamin Netanyahu has warned civilians in Gaza to get out while they can, promising to reduce parts of the enclave to rubble. And serious questions are being asked about how Israel's intelligence services, renowned as some of the world's best, could have failed to see the attack coming. The current conflict has its roots all the way back in the First World War. The British, hoping to secure support for their fight against the Turkish, agreed to facilitate, in their words, the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. There was some Jewish migration to the region around this time, but it was not until the end of the Second World War that the idea really caught traction in the wake of the Holocaust. In 1947, the UN adopted a resolution partitioning what was then the British Mandate of Palestine into two states, one Jewish, one Arab. The Jewish agreed to the partition. The Arabs and neighboring Arab states did not, sparking the First War. That ended in 1949 with an Israeli victory, expanding their territory beyond the agreed borders and displacing some 750,000 Palestinians who fled into Jordan, Lebanon, Gaza, and the West Bank. Multiple wars and two intifadas later, Gaza is under blockade, the West Bank is behind a wall, and a peace process aimed at finding a two-state solution is all but dead. Those Palestinians, unfortunate enough to be unable to relocate, live in poverty in increasingly small parcels of land on the West Bank and Gaza, encroached upon by Israeli settlers. The Islamist Hamas organization, which has links with Iran, took control of the Gaza Strip in 2007 after a brief war with Fatah. Outside of the West Bank, Gaza and Lebanon, many Arab states, the traditional allies of the Palestinians, are now normalizing relations with Israel under the Abraham Accords. The UAE and Bahrain did so in 2020, while US brokered talks were thought to be going on with Saudi Arabia. One of the most likely motives for Hamas's deadly attack is to stop these talks, betting that Riyadh would find it impossible to do a deal while a war was ongoing. Stopping the talks also benefits Iran, Saudi's nemesis, by keeping the two US allies divided. According to the Wall Street Journal, the Iranians spent weeks helping Hamas plan the attack and gave the green light for it to go ahead a week ago at a meeting in Beirut. Israel has vowed to respond with all its military might and has already begun launching deadly airstrikes into Gaza. A far bloodier ground invasion to wipe out Hamas seems to be looming. Should fighting break out, it could well drag in Hezbollah, another Iranian-backed militia which controls parts of neighboring Lebanon, and Iranian proxies in Syria. That raises the prospect of a far more dangerous and wider regional conflict. Any prospect of improved relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia is probably dead. Netanyahu has told his people to brace for a long period of war.